Let's bring in now Jonathan Schanzer, Senior Vice President for Research at the Foundation for Defense of Democracy. He's joining us from Washington, D.C. Thank you for coming on. So we're hearing an Israeli official here saying that the Iranians rejected a deal that even the U.S. wouldn't have agreed to because the terms were supposedly favorable to the Iranians. On the other hand, Iranian officials saying that they're close to striking a deal. So who should we believe here?
Well, I think what we can say for certain is that a new deal is on the table, that it has the attention of the United States, that it has been approved, at least on some level, by the Europeans. It looks like the ball's in the U.S. court. Whether or not the concessions that the Iranians have asked for is a step too far is, I think, what we are really looking to find out right now. If they're asking for just simply too much in a way that would embarrass U.S. negotiators. It always, I think, when the Iranians are at the negotiating table, it's always yes, but, or no, but. It forces the conversation to extend out much further beyond the time frame that I think all the negotiators on the U.S. side had hoped for or envisioned. The Iranians have been masterful at playing this out. It does, of course, raise the question as to whether they're serious about a deal in the first place, but I suspect we'll find out about that very soon.
Right, and how badly do you think U.S. President Joe Biden and the other members of the administration want this deal? Because in the end of the day, at the moment, the terms are terms that are much worse for the U.S. than the previous agreement that was in place. So do you think this is something that the U.S. administration is willing to basically sacrifice sort of a large amount of U.S. interest in order to ink a deal?
Look, I think the administration has repeatedly demonstrated that it is desperate to get a deal. That's why we're still actually having these conversations in Vienna, before that Doha, before that Vienna still. So this has been dragging on for almost the entire time that President Biden has been in office. I do think that it looks embarrassing for the United States to still be in these conversations, given Iranian intransigence, given the really some of the outrageous requests that have been put on the table, including the delisting of the IRGC, and now there is apparently some kind of compromise suggestion that's on the table that would lead to the delisting of significant entities within the IRGC.
So I want to ask you just very briefly, because we have to finish soon, what are the alternatives? We're seeing Israeli officials are saying the U.S. and everyone needs to walk away from this agreement to explore other alternatives, maybe military threats. What is the alternative to this bad negotiation tactic that you just talked about?
Look, there are two. One is maximum pressure on the regime, an attempt to basically deprive it of all of the cash and political legitimacy on the world stage. This was, of course, the Trump administration policy, and I don't expect the Biden administration to go back to that. The other option is, of course, insisting on a much different deal. But of course, that may be one that Iran walks away from, which would ultimately lead the Biden administration back to that strategy of maximum pressure, which I still believe is what the U.S. should be pursuing.
All right, Jonathan Schanzer, the Senior Vice President for Research of Foundation for Defense of Democracies, joining us from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much for that.